Hi, I'm Maria Boynton reporting. My guest today is none other than Dr. Bernice King. She, of course, is the CEO of the King Center here in Atlanta, Georgia. We're at it again. 1 year later, we see you each and every year at the helm of the celebration of your father, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. How have you been doing?
You always ask me that question.
Because I want to know, the people want to know how you're doing.
I've been struggling through the process.
And how is that struggle for you, Dr. Bernice?
You know, it has its ups and it has its downs. It's a challenge to run a nonprofit because of the nonprofit. You have to rely on, you know, people to give, and giving is hard for some people. If people want a product, it's easy to exchange your money for a product, but when you're talking about giving into, sometimes it can be nebulous. So when we talk about educating and training people in nonviolence, it's sometimes hard for people to make that tangible, to really relate to it. How does that connect to me, you know, my heartstrings? And so we've had the challenge of trying to figure out how do we connect to people's heart, the work that we're doing, and so that they understand the importance of supporting it. So that's been probably the biggest challenge in what I've been faced with in carrying my parents' legacy forward.
And when you talk about giving, your parents, Dr. King and Mrs. Coretta Scott King, they gave so much of themselves. How do you enlighten people about the importance of giving of yourself to help humanity?
Well, I mean, you know, I try to help people to understand that all of us were really created in this earth to make some kind of contribution, that we're not here by accident, and it's not really about us. It's about each other. It's about another generation. And so even when I'm talking to young people, I try to help them understand that the things that they are enjoying today, they're benefiting from today. It wasn't just here for you when you were born. There were some people that came before you that made sacrifices and contributions and had you in mind when they were doing that, so that you could have these benefits. So just like they, quote unquote, as we use in the world, paid it forward, you too have to pay it forward. And when I'm talking to a bigger crowd, I just kind of put my father's quote out there: an individual has not started to live until he or she can rise above the narrow confines of his or her individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of humanity. It makes us better people when we can include others in our journey, and it's not merely about us and what I want, but it should be about what we want and what we must do.
It is the 32nd anniversary of the King holiday. 32nd, 2018. What's the significance of this year?
Well, this year is, for us, is the 50th celebration of the holiday. My mother started commemorating the birthday January 1969, so this will be our 50th commemoration of the birthday. It's also the 50th anniversary year for commemorating my father's assassination, and then the founding of the King Center. So all of those are significant milestones for us, and we're still here. You know, in spite of, you know, different twists and turns.
You talked about the struggle,
in spite of the struggle, we're still here. And I think in light of where our nation and world is today, a lot of turmoil, a lot of polarization and divisiveness, I find it interesting that at certain set times in our nation, Dr. King comes back around to us, whether it's at the beginning of the year or whether it's an anniversary. So when certain things are happening in our nation, it's like you can't escape it. Here comes Dr. King, and here comes this great commemoration. And interestingly enough, because it goes from January holiday to April assassination and June founding of the King Center, people are going to have to constantly be reminded of this legacy that has called us to our best self, called us to a place where we embrace all of humanity, where we treat each other with dignity and respect, where we learn how to overcome our differences and find that common ground, and how we create a more just and humane and peaceful world. He's constantly like speaking to us, and this year it's going to be intensified because it's needed.
Yes.
Because people, I mean, I'm concerned about the polarization.
Okay.
I'm concerned that people now have so many emotions around what happened in the 2016 election and the current administration, that we're going to just come apart at the seams because the tension is so great, and the emotions are so intense. The anger, the hate, the fear, the hostility is so intense to the point where people are, it's almost like, I don't want to have anything to do with whoever or them. And I'm saying, we live in this world, as my father called it, world house. You know, if you think about a house and you having to live in that structure together, there are spaces in that structure that are common spaces that at some point you're going to intersect. And if you don't find a way to coexist appropriately, that house can eventually burn up. You can destroy it. And so we've got to find a way, in spite of the tension and in spite of the issues that separate and divide us, to how do we coexist and create at the same time? How do we coexist and create justice, equity, and peace in our world? You know, how can I deal with a member of another party who has very firm beliefs that are so different from mine? How can we elevate our conversation to think at a higher level of how we advance humanity and how we ensure that everyone has a fair opportunity? You know, and that's difficult. It means we have to have longer conversations, deeper conversations. I think sometimes we don't spend enough time hearing each other. I mean, just searching, hearing, working through those difficult spaces of disagreement, you know, and truly trying to understand where the disagreement is. Because sometimes if you listen long enough, you can hear for an opening that would make the other person make another decision. But we're so intent on what we believe that we're not even hearing the other person. And so we can't even think about a solution that is a win-win. So Dr. Kingsley, if I had to sum it up, his legacy is about win-win. And that's why when we approach the 50th anniversary, our theme is Together We Win. Together we win. With love for humanity. If a basketball team goes on the court and I'm caught up in my own world on that court, I'm thinking about me. I have a serious problem with you on that team. I don't like you, I can't stand you. But we got to play this game. And more importantly, we have to win this game. In order for us to win, I got to lay that aside, and I got to figure out how to work with you in making sure that we get enough points to win the game so that we win. So humanity, together we win, and it takes love, with love for humanity. You have to love humanity. You have to love other than yourself. You have to love in spite of, and recognize that human beings are flawed. There's good in the worst of us, and there's bad in the best of us. If we could ever fully understand that, and on top of that, if we could ever chew the meat and spit out the bones, connected to that, that means even the bad, there's something you might be able to chew out of that you can extract and that can be beneficial. Because we have a tendency, if I don't like you, I receive nothing from you. It doesn't matter if it's good. I don't, because this one thing that I just don't like, I draw the line. I have nothing to do with you, nothing that comes from you. And if this person had the answer to something, we wouldn't even receive it, because I can't stand you, I don't like you, because you believe this about this, and it disagrees with what I believe about this. I don't want this part of you. We can't do that. We can't keep doing that.
Dr. Bernice King, I like that analogy, chewing up the meat, spitting out the bone. I like that. All that being said, and with the current situation, you talked about tumultuous times, divisiveness, things of that nature. Your father's teachings, the teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., what do they tell us when we look at the situation with North Korea? We see the current administration in the White House going back and forth. We see the tweets. My button is bigger than yours, and my button works. What do the teachings of your father, what examples should we take from his teachings in bringing a solution to the situation with North Korea, do you think?
Well, first of all, again, I believe in being strategic, and I believe that you have to find where the access point is.
Okay.
Now, this is going to sound crazy and whacked out. If Dennis Rodman has a relationship with that man in North Korea, why not utilize the craziness of what, but I mean, I won't say that. Why not use Dennis Rodman in this process? I may not be able to reach a person. You have to know who your players are and who you have access to use in the process. My father was a master of that. He knew the gifting of Hosea Williams. He knew what he was appropriate for. So when they needed a little agitating, he would send Hosea in. When he needed a little diplomacy, he would send Andrew Young in. He knew who he had on his team. I think we have to learn who do we have on our team. And if I'm the leader, I don't always have to be the one. You know, I can delegate or I can assign someone else. I need you to work on that relationship with us. Because at the end of the day, whatever button, we know no one wins when it comes to nuclear. No one. We all lose. And so we have to transcend the buttons. That's, you know, that's like kids play in a real world. That's dangerous. And so start thinking about where the access points are. You know, that's the, and so that's daddy. I mean, you know, you got to know who to make the connections.
And you're here now. You're continuing the legacy. You talk about finding the access points using Dennis Rodman. Would you be open to possibly helping bring all of that together? Come on. Why not you? If not you, who?
Well, put it to you this way. If God says to me, go and do this, and I know people are like, how do you know when God says that? I don't know how to describe that to people, but there's a urging in your spirit that won't let you rest. It's like you get, you know, you're trying to do something else and something keeps coming back up over and over and over again. Then eventually you do it. I don't know if I'm the person. I don't know if I have the access to do that right now.
Right now?
Right now.
Maybe a year from now?
And maybe sooner.
Okay. We're talking to Dr. Bernice King, CEO of the King Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Talking about the King holiday, why is it important that people continue to celebrate your father's legacy?
I heard somebody in May say, because it's the truth.
It's the truth.
It's the truth. I mean, he's my dad, so I'm going to be a little biased than the average person. But he just provides us with the means and the way. I don't know of another way. When you study him and when you get exposed to, you know, the philosophy and the methodology, we do educate and train people in his philosophy and methodology. It just makes you a better person. It gives you the skills and the ability to navigate in a world of differences, diversity, and you approach individuals and situations totally different. You see people as a part of your human family. People, not the ones I prefer, but you see people in general. And your heart is postured toward wanting to find the best for all. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be rosy. It doesn't mean we're not going to have disagreements. It doesn't even mean, for instance, you know, there's going to be a sense of segregation for the rest of our lives. I mean, you know, just by choice. You know, I prefer this. You know, not because I don't like you or want to be with you. It's just, this is what I prefer. Like we talk about Sunday, Daddy talked about Sunday being 11 o'clock hour being the most thoroughly segregated hour.
Yes.
You know, and I thought about it. Was he really saying, you know, we need all churches to be multicultural? Mm-hmm. I think he was talking about a spirit and a heart as opposed to literal. That every single church needed to have black, white, Hispanic, Native American, you know, Asian in their congregation. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's what he meant. I think he meant that our hearts ought to be postured to welcome and include that in our experience. And if it so happens to attract all those differences, so be it. But if it attracts opposite, so be it. It's the spirit of it. And so I think his teachings are vital today because he does show us how to have a heart, because that's the key here. I mean, you know, people do things every day, but I always try to look and see what is the real heart and intent of the person, because that matters to me more than just the actions. Mm-hmm. You know, when I look and somebody does something that's bad, unjust, evil, I'm always wondering what is the intent and heart of that person. If they're doing it out of ignorance, mm-hmm. lack of exposure, you know, it's one thing versus they're just mean-spirited, you know. So I look to see what is the heart, and I think that's what he left with us. He left with us how to have the right heart for humanity, for our brothers and sisters that are part of this earth that we live in.
You talk about the heart.
Because out of the heart flow the issues.
Definitely.
So if your heart is right, you'll do what's right.
Compassion.
Compassion.
When you say, Daddy, I feel the compassion. I hear it in your voice. You were 5 years old when your father was assassinated. Do you have any memories?
Very little, very few. The kissing game that we always played, I always remember that.
What was that about?
Well, when he would come home, I would run up into his arms and he would just say, you know, we're going to play the kissing game today. And each one of us had a spot, forehead, two cheeks, side of the mouth, and the smack dead in the middle. Mm-hmm. Of course, it was my mom. My sister was to the side. Mm-hmm. I was on the forehead and my two brothers opposite cheek. Mm-hmm. And he would just say, okay, we're going to play the kissing game. Mm-hmm. And each one of us had what he called a sugar spot. Okay. He called it sugar. I guess he considered the kiss to be sweet. I don't know. And so, okay, where is, and he would call one person's name, and I would kiss him on that spot. Mm-hmm. So I remember that very vividly. And I remember oftentimes sitting at the dinner table. Don't remember conversations, but what I do remember is many times he would take these long stem onions, and he would pick them up before any kind of grace was said, and he would just chew on it like it was a celery stick. Okay. So I don't know why I remember that.
Great memories.
But I do remember that. Everything else, predominantly, I was told, except I vaguely remember one time being on my tricycle and that my dad and two brothers were riding the bikes, mm-hmm. and they went out into the street that we lived on, and I tried to follow. Mm-hmm. And of course, you know, he was keeping his eyes on me. And I remember him getting me and pulling me back, you know. So that's about all that I, you know, actually remember mm-hmm. versus being told.
Beautiful memories. Thank you so much, Dr. Bernice King.
Thank you.
I'm Maria Boynton.